Hello and welcome to episode 91 of Toward a Better Life. This is your host, Kevin Pennell. Toward a Better Life podcast features like-minded people that share their stories, ideas, and activities on what we can do to generate a better life individually and collectively. And you can be one of those people if you have something to share, like if you're a storyteller, you have a story to tell, or some poetry, or something along those lines, or even if it's an audio piece like music, be sure to send it to me. And if you send me an audio piece, please make it an MP3 file. It just makes it so much easier for me to work with. And the other person I want to talk about right now is Kim Mosiman. Kim is a loving wife, mom, and grandma who specializes in empowering women. There's more to come about her in just a moment. If you enjoy the episode, if you learned something today, please consider following the show, subscribing through your favorite podcast platform like Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or Amazon, to name a few. And please be sure to leave a review. A free way to support our show is by leaving a 5-star review, and that's on Apple Podcasts, by the way. It's a chance to tell me more of what you love about the show and how it helps others to discover it too. As I said, Kim Mosiman specializes in empowering women who are embarking on their second act. She'll tell us about the second act in the interview. And Kim's a nutritionist, by the way, with its certifications in precision nutrition and the Institute of Integrative Nutrition, and a wellness coach. With her faith-driven approach and experience as a gym owner, Kim offers a unique blend of spiritual and physical wellness. Her book, Reflections of Joy, provides practical strategies to inspire strength, beauty, and holistic growth in every aspect of life. Stay tuned now as Kim shares insights toward living abundantly. Hello, Kim, and welcome to this edition of Toward a Better Life. Kim Mosiman, how are you?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Thank you. Kim has recently published a book. Before going on any further, I'm just going to be quiet. And Kim, you have the floor just to tell us a little bit about Kim Mosiman and what you do.
Well, thank you. I've done a lot of things in my life. When I was younger, my husband and I ran restaurants, and he continued doing that while after I caught the fitness bug. And so I was a gym owner and a personal trainer and became a nutritionist and did that and loved every minute of it for about 10 years. And I worked with people. They would come in, maybe not loving who they were at the time, and we did 9-week challenges. So they would take a picture, and I would teach them how to exercise and talk to them about their food choices. And there was a little bit of a competitive feel to it. And we'd take pictures at the end, and there was a winner. And what I discovered is people looking to the future. They were never happy with where they were at the time, which is where my book came into place. But what I learned after I closed the gym and how my book ended up being exactly what it is today is I became that person who maybe wasn't happy with who I was and looking into the future for that magic moment when I weighed the right thing or I looked the right way and I learned that my body at 50 could not do what my body could do when I was 20. And fortunately, I had a lot of great years. I picked up some good habits, good training. So I figured it out eventually. But you're exactly right. Our bodies do transition particularly in our 40s. And figure it out in time. Your 50s and 60s can be quite lovely, but if you don't figure it out, you can get frustrated or even injured along the way. So, yeah.
Yeah, it is very true what you've just said. If you don't take care of it early on, it can create problems down the road. And that's something that I think is very important for us, particularly in this fast-paced world that we live in. We think, oh, I can fix it in no time. Matter of fact, I just had a client today who had an injury, and the response is, the injury was probably, I'm going to say, about 5 to 6 weeks ago, and they would like to have it done now. They'd like to be over it now. And it's whiplash. And if anyone knows anything about whiplash, it can literally go for years. I didn't want to tell her that. But
Yes.
but a lot of times whiplash, if you don't take care of it in the front end, at the back end, you'll wish you had. And I've run into people that 15 years later they didn't address it. So I'm kind of going down a rabbit hole here, but the point is when you recognize that you need to make some changes, there's a reason why you recognize that is because your inner self, your body, your psyche is basically sending you up a flag saying, please help me. And the
Yeah.
sad narrative is that when people ignore that and think, I'll take care of that later, at some point the body's going to say, okay, you're not listening,
Yep.
bang. And then
It,
it happens. And it can be anything.
yep.
It can be a car wreck. It could be a physical ailment that comes up that just basically lays you out. And it's like the body saying, okay, you didn't listen before. Let me get your
Yep.
attention.
Yep. I gave you some warning signals, but you you ignored them, right? Yes.
Uh-huh.
Yes. Or the people, there were several people who would come to the gym and think, okay, this hurts today, so I'm going to modify. But then through that modification, they would cause something else to feel crummy and just kind of make that it would just compound the injury by weakening a different body part at the same time. So yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm going to guess your book title is really interesting. I like it. Reflections of Joy, Learning to Love the Woman You See While Becoming the One You're Meant to Be. And
Yes.
that's lovely. So tell us a little bit about the book. It's really cool what I'm reading, and it sounds really, really intriguing.
Yeah, well, when I owned the gym, I thought I should write a book. I was meeting all of these incredible people and I watched transformations and people get off medication or people work slowly to gain strength or to be able to do something they'd always wanted to do. And it was amazing. And so I always thought someday when I have time, I'll write a how-to book because we're just doing everything right. So I'll write it down and I'll tell people how we eat and how we move and what we do. And then my husband's job sort of slowed down. And I thought, well, he's going on vacations, great trips. And I'm still waking up at 3 o'clock in the morning to run a gym. And so we made the decision after a lot of prayer and a lot of family time that I would close too. And then without that job and without that sense of purpose for the first time in my life, and was sleeping in and maybe eating some things I hadn't because I was no longer in somebody's spotlight, I gained some weight and I really became my own client, my own worst client, probably. Um, and through a series I journal. I had always journaled, but my journaling turned a different direction. And I had this great little printed thing somewhere in me when I retired. And I turned the page, and at the bottom of the page, it said, "You are altogether beautiful, my love. There is no flaw in you," from the Song of Solomon. And after reading that, I thought to myself, I spent all of those years looking at the men and women who came to my gym and being able to see the beauty and the worth and the strength and the value in them. But somehow I couldn't see it in myself. It really was a turnaround point for me. And I started refocusing on the things I knew how to do. But I hadn't worked out for a long time. I was a little bit older. I had put on some weight. I was deconditioned. So I had to start slowly, just like you were talking about before. I couldn't just jump right back in. I was 2 years out from my last kickboxing class. And so I went for a walk one day. Then we started changing up our food again. And I just learned that I could look in the mirror and I could see the value in myself long before I reached that number on the scale or fit back into those pants that I wore once. And it made me realize how many men and women are out there waiting for that magic number, waiting for the diagnosis, waiting for the something before they feel their life is of value. So Reflections of Joy is no longer a how-to book, but it's a how-I book. And I hope it serves as inspiration for men and women to to be able to look at themselves and see there is something good right there in the mirror today. Doesn't mean that's where I have to stop, but gosh, I like who I am, and I hope other people do too.
Okay, people really do need to like themselves, you know. And
Yeah.
used to be years and years ago, I remember in some counseling seminars and stuff that I went to in one of my previous iterations, is that, well, the best thing that you can do is remember to have your client go stand in front of the mirror and say, I love you. And that's great.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
wonderful. That's good advice. The trouble is if you tell someone to do something like that, if they've already done several of these workshops and they've already read several books that all tell them the same thing. Now, at some point, I'm also the believer that all they need is that one phrase. You got something out of the Song of Solomon.
Yeah.
Others might get something from some other resource, but all it takes is that one little thing and everything opens up. But before
Yeah.
that, and what I'm getting at is we can do so many things by rote. We can do so many things just by matter of fact and routine that it means nothing. I
Yeah.
remember a very good friend of mine said once a long time ago, he asked me the question, Kevin, do you know the difference between a rut and a grave?
Mm.
The difference between a rut and a grave is this, that a rut is simply a grave with both ends knocked out.
Oh,
That was phenomenal. And he's right, because
yeah.
it's just the same old thing. I told myself I love myself. I said it 3 times a day. I said it
Right.
14 days in a row. I still feel the same. Why is that? It's because you really haven't connected. And what I'm hearing about your book and about your work is that you want people to connect with themselves
Yep.
at a basal level. And
Yep.
I'm gonna leap right out there and I'm gonna bet that you saw that because you owned a gym.
I did. And I would, when we work with people, you see them, and I could see that their bodies were changing. I could see them in exercise class walk over and pick up a heavier weight. I could see their pants baggier. They can't see in the rear view mirror. But I took them. The biggest thing for me, and the biggest hurt for them was when people came to my gym. I had them fill out a questionnaire. And one of those questions was, name 3 things that you love about yourself.
Hmm.
And that was the question that was always left blank. And so in my book, I go through an exercise in one of my chapters where I ask people to really look at themselves, and I give them the examples. I still have things I'd like to change in myself. I'd still like to lose some weight, and I would still like to, firm up my arms. But by gosh, I can look in the mirror and I know that I've got great hair. And I know that I have beautiful eyes. And I know that even though I've gained weight, my legs still look okay. And so, what I try to do for myself is, for everything I'd like to change, I like to match it. So, when we were in the restaurants, we would do things and we called them wells and betters. We'd come out of a lunch rush with a group of people who were frustrated because maybe a customer didn't treat them right, or maybe it was too busy and we didn't have people. But we'd sit down and we'd talk about wells and betters. What went well, what could have gone better, and how could we do that? And I've really started to apply it to myself, and I applied it to my practice in the gym. What do I love about myself? And what would I like to change? For everyone, there's got to be another. It's more than just looking in the mirror and saying a phrase that I've practiced or I've memorized. And yes, you got to look at yourself and say, I love you. But gosh, you gotta have something to back it up.
Yeah, you do.
Yeah.
You got to back it up with something.
Yep.
You mean it just doesn't come about? You just don't
No,
lose weight? You just don't feel better?
no,
That's no fair.
I know. But like I know that once a person gets in that right headspace, my gosh, it's easier to show up for workouts, or it's easier to
Mhm.
show up, and it's easier to drive past the fast food restaurant and cook a meal at home. It's just easier to keep going when you like what's happening. And I just tried to really get people to look at what's good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, consistency. So
Yes.
we were saying the thing about, go in front of the mirror, say I love you. go in front of the mirror, say, I have beautiful eyes.
Yes.
Well, if you
Yes.
say that enough times, eventually you're going to believe it. And eventually you're
Yeah.
going to see something else. You know what I like about myself? I've been doing this same thing consistently for a week.
Yeah.
Now, granted,
Yep.
I haven't seen any real changes that I'm looking for, but I'm consistent.
Yep.
And that's
Yep.
where I go into stuff like, if you want to try something, try some meditation, try some very quiet work with yourself, go deep within yourself,
Hmm.
ask yourself some questions, encourage people like they're reading your book and they look at those three questions. Or when the people were filling out the application and saying, give me three things that you like about yourself. And give me three things. Give me one.
Right. Right.
Give, you know,
But some people are at such a place they can't find them. And so I encourage those people to ask the people that love them. You know, we have people that love us and we don't ever ask them. I have children. I have grandchildren. And my grandchildren don't talk yet, but I'll ask them someday. But good land, ask them, what do you love about me? Because there are people in this world that love you in ways that you have no idea. Ask them. Ask them.
and you read my mind there. I like that because that's exactly where I was going to go in the sense of, so, you have these ideas and you want to make a difference and you want to make changes in your life. So, what advice do you give the person who's trying to make a healthy change and who, okay, so let's go with that. What kind of
Yeah.
advice do you give somebody who's trying to make that healthy change and yet, I'm going to say it, who struggles to get her family on board? Let's try that.
Mm, you're exactly right. And there are those triggers. What we tried to do some fun things.
Hmm.
Fortunately, I had adventurous eaters, but um, things they didn't like. So I would always cook the same main protein. We could all agree on that, a roasted chicken or cook up taco meat or whatever. They would have tacos. I might have a salad. I always tried to make it as easy as I could to keep everybody in the house happy.
That,
And and that's the same. Ask them to go for a walk with you.
mm,
Or if you're too busy to just randomly go for a walk. And that's the other thing. People will say, "Oh, I'm too busy to do this. I'm too busy to cook. I'm too busy to exercise. I can't make these changes because I'm too busy." Well, often, particularly in that 30 to 40 age group, we're dropping kiddos off at some sort of activity. And then because somehow we were blessed with these computers that write in our pockets, we continue to work as we sit in the car and wait for them instead of jumping out of the car and going for a walk with a friend or another mom that's in the car parked in front of you. And so yeah, people say, "Oh, I can't get my family on board," but sometimes you just have to ask them. You're assuming they're not going to eat what you want to eat, and you're assuming that they're not going to go for a walk for you with you. And so, until you get brave and ask them to jump on board, you never really know. You might be surprised.
yeah. So encourage people to get on board with you, basically.
Yeah. Don't
And
ask them to make all the same changes because maybe they don't need to. I still packed little Debbie oatmeal pies in my son's lunchbox once in a while, but they ate generally what I gave to them. So
well, okay, so the little Debbie thing, is that
yeah,
what you said? Do
yeah,
you know that it's an interesting thing to me is that when we shift, I mean, we're in nutrition now, but when we make a little shift like that, it changes our subconscious at the same time.
yeah,
So what's happened to us, and I know even for myself, is that I'm going to ice cream or the little Debbie cakes or moon
yeah,
pies, whatever. And I would go get a package of them or I'd go get a half a gallon of it and it would be gone in 2 or 3 days.
yep.
And all of a sudden that treat became a staple.
Hmm.
And that's where the mistake lies.
Yep.
is
Yep.
we don't see them as treats. And you were still giving a treat, and that's okay. But they weren't
Yeah.
getting the treat every day. So they're
Nope.
recognizing it that this is different.
Yes.
Make it
Yep.
something different. Make it so that, boy, I can just hardly wait to have whatever it is that you want to have. But put it off
Exactly.
so you can
Yep.
appreciate it.
There was a lady at my gym, and she and her husband, their kids were gone, and she was so faithful to her exercise routine, and she planned her food and she took her lunches to work. But every Friday night, they went out for pizza. It was date night and they enjoyed it. They sat across the table from one another and they talked. And what I try to teach people is ice cream's not bad.
Mm-mm.
But if it's in the fridge or if it's in the freezer under the broccoli hidden behind the chicken, and you've got a padlock around it, obviously it's a problem. So just don't buy it, but take the family out and go to some place and get really great ice cream
Mm-hmm.
and spend that time together once in a while.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with ice cream unless it's an everyday I have to have it sort of thing.
And that's it. Yeah.
Yep.
That's it. Where I think I have to do it every day. And that's what you're
Yep.
convincing yourself of. And your brain and your palate will actually tell you and will give you cravings. And sometimes that's what the seed of a craving can be. That's been my experience. And sometimes a craving can be a case of something as simple as the body is also telling me I need something in my life. I need,
Yep.
like, say, for whatever reason, I crave, for an example, I will crave lemon ginger tea. But one of my things that I deal with is in traditional Chinese medicine, they refer to as excess dampness. So, do you know what ginger does? Ginger helps to dry out dampness.
Oh,
So
well,
my
that's
brain is
interesting.
telling me I need to get I need to get dry. I need to dry myself out a little bit. And if
Mm-hmm.
it's not that, it's something else. So we train our bodies to listen to ourselves. We train our bodies to listen, or we train ourselves to listen to our bodies. And it's a process to do that. But I think once we begin it, it seems to work. Have you noticed that when you're talking about this age group that we're referring to with middle age, are there some patterns we should look at? Are there some things that we need to start shifting toward or shifting away from that start to reveal themselves to us? Is there anything like that that you could help us with?
I think that there are some general things, but what I encourage people to do is really listen to their own bodies. I think so often we see on TV a pharmaceutical commercial come up and it'll say, "Oh, do you have this, 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 and this?" And of course we do, right? We all do, because it could be any number of things that causes that problem. But we all think, "Oh, I have a problem, so I'm going to run to the doctor. I'm going to take the supplement." But what I've encouraged people to do for the longest time, and what I do for myself, is I journal every day and I
Mm,
keep track of things. And I've created an owner's manual for myself. So when I go in to see my doctor, whether it's for a routine yearly exam or whether I really do have an issue, I have evidence. It's not just because it's so hard to sit with someone and when they say, "Well, when did this start?" Well, it might have started 3 months ago, but I don't know. And I don't know what all the particulars are. But every day I write down, I don't write everything down, but if I notice that I have psoriasis, for example, and I've had it since my 20s, and sometimes it's very under control, and sometimes it flares. And I've been able to put together the time of year that it flares, always when I live in Iowa. And so like right now they're pulling crops out of the field and I have allergies and that corn mold always triggers me. My head is on fire as we speak. I know that it's going to happen. And so I don't have to spend the money, a doctor's appointment, or try some magic potion because I know what's happening. So I tweak up my diet a little bit. I take a different allergy medicine, but I have that information. And so, like this morning when I woke up and my eyes were all puffy, Well, guess what? Last September, the same thing happened. I have data about myself. And so that was a very roundabout way of saying, yes, things happen at this age. We start to ache a little bit. Maybe we don't heal as quickly as we did before.
True.
I used to be able to walk in or work in the garden all day long. I live in Iowa. All these leaves are going to fall one of these days very soon. If I go and I spend an entire day raking leaves or doing all of those things, tomorrow I'm going to be sore. Doesn't
Hmm.
mean there's anything wrong with me. It's a difference in my body today versus 20 years ago. So I think we have to learn to listen to ourselves. We have to learn to anticipate. Maybe I don't work in the garden for 8 hours on my hands and knees anymore. Maybe I go out for 3 hours and I take a break and I go for a walk and I do some things and I finish up tomorrow. There's nothing wrong with honoring where your body is today.
Hmm.
Again, it doesn't mean throw your hands up or grab that flag of surrender, but it does mean pay attention and honor your age, honor where you are, honor what you're capable of doing.
Hmm. So I'm hearing, for an example, make adjustments to your lifestyle that are in alignment with your age and with your lifestyle.
Yeah.
Because the reason why that age bracket is so broad from 36 to the late 40s is because everyone's different.
Yes.
There
Yes.
is no, this is the way it has to be, and there's no other way that'll work. You cannot vary from it. Yes, you can because we're all different.
Yep.
And what
Yep.
may work for you may not work for me, and vice versa. So we have to look at it that way. The other one is that you said you had data on yourself, and it's just the matter of you talking about journaling. People think sometimes journaling is all about, well, you can get very bardic about it and just, wax eloquent and make all these beautiful poems and stuff like. And there's nothing wrong with that. Don't knock it. I love it.
Right.
I
Right.
like
Me too.
reading really cool stuff and deeply spiritual stuff. But that's not necessarily what the journal is about. The
Right.
journal is about today I woke up with puffy eyes.
Hmm.
Write it down. That way, just like you did, you can go up there and say, when was the last time this happened? It happened a year ago. And it's the
Yep.
exact same scenario. There must be
Yep.
a reason, you know?
And quite honestly, I'm going to turn a little bit towards women in this next statement, but women's bodies between 36 and late 40s change dramatically.
Oh, yeah.
And there are so many um, over the counter or even prescription medications that they have options to take. More often than not, I find that you don't need them if you're aware of your body. If you pay attention to what's going on, sometimes you can avoid taking a medication because unless you're tracking what's happening regularly with your body, you don't know. So when the doctor says, oh, is it terrible? Well, if last night you didn't sleep at all, yep, it's terrible. So I'm going to take a medication that I might only need 2 days a month. Write it down, know yourself. I think it's so important.
Yeah, and if it doesn't work, make note of it as well.
Absolutely.
Because again, not everything works for everybody.
Yep.
Um, some years ago, I developed a formula. One I called it feminine freedom. The other one I called feminine grace. Feminine freedom was for women of childbearing years. Feminine
Mhm.
grace is for perimenopause and menopause. And there were specific herbs that were used in a tea.
Mhm.
And jokingly, I had one lady that told me, she says, I said, how is it? She says, it's great. Tastes like dirt, but it's great. I said, well, it's medicine. You
Yes.
it is what it is. But when you're talking about the menopause part and things of that nature, women go through so much during that time period. I had a guest on some months ago, and we talked about this at length about menopause and perimenopause. And I'm going to throw something out there toward guys again, because I did it at that program, and I'll do it again because you brought it up. And
Yeah.
that is be supportive. Don't complain. Say yes, dear, a lot. Trust me. Yeah. It's just, and it's a team together. If something happened to you, and I'll say it again, if something happened to you guys, you would look for some kind of support from your partner, your wife, right? So turn it
Yeah.
around. She needs you now. So be supportive. So there. That's my preach, and that's my I'll get off my soapbox. But doggone it, it's something, you're in this together. So support each other with it. And mine
Those
has
are
gone
good
through it.
words.
Yeah,
Yeah.
mine has gone
Yeah.
through it. I'm still here. I'm still alive. I still have,
Right.
all my faculties. And she has even said, I don't know how he did it. Well, you just do it one day at a
Yeah.
time. And how can I support you? Here's one good one. How do you feel today? And then
Yeah.
wait for it. And if they start opening up, don't stop by giving advice. They're not asking you for advice by that response, whatever it is. All they want is somebody to listen to. And when
Yep.
advice is needed, it'll be asked for. But for the most part, just listen. So, all
Yep.
right, I am really going to quit now.
Nope. That was all good advice. It was, we can get through almost anything in life if we've got someone to share the journey with.
Yeah.
And sometimes you're right. Sometimes it just means either being a good listener or finding that person who listens to you. So, yep, you were just fine to jump up on that soapbox.
So let me ask you this one. Based on your experience as a personal trainer, what advice do you give out to the woman who is afraid to start an exercise program? We'll go to physical
Start.
now, away from
Yep.
nutrition.
Yep. I would say just start. And remember the middle-aged woman who's afraid to start, don't think back to those years. We're not in high school. We're not
Yeah.
20 years old. For Pete's sakes, I'm not even 40 anymore. And, and, but moving is important and moving is therapeutic and it's beautiful. And I spend the time in conversation with God or working through the next book I want to write or talking with a friend. You don't have to raise your heart rate to a certain level to call it movement. You don't have to. And if you haven't moved in a long time, or if you've been sick, or if you've just overcome an injury, exercise is moving from the house to the mailbox a few times a day. It's okay to start small, because if you start small and you're consistent with it, in a week, you can go a little bit more. I'm working with this beautiful woman just recently, and she said, "Oh, I just don't think I can walk anymore. I just don't think I have it in me." She started slowly. We talk on the phone. She's moving, and last night I got a text message after 4 weeks of consistent walking and listening to her body and pushing a little bit farther when she feels good. She's feeling amazing. And her daughter was in town. She walked 4.5 miles. And she's like, a month ago, I didn't think I could ever do that again. So honor what you can do today and do the things that feel good today so that you can do it again tomorrow. And, really, if you're coming from a place of injury, do those things that will allow you to do it again tomorrow.
And having a private practice at one point in a gym, I can tell you something else that you're already aware of. Take your eyes off the person next to you and just focus on you.
Yeah.
If that person is buffed, awesome. Yay for them. You don't
Yep.
have to look like that. You really don't. You
Yep.
might look like that. You may look like that, but not tomorrow, not next week, maybe not even a few months. But if you keep doing it, just like you're saying, Kim, if you stay consistent and you just do a little bit at a time, before you know it, things are going to be a whole lot different than they were before. Things are going to shift, things are going to change, and they're going to change for the direction that you like because you took your time getting there and you didn't, rush into it. Just for the sake of consistency, for the people out there that want to lose 15 to 20 pounds and they lose it in 30 days.
Yeah.
And can you tell me about how well that works? Tell us how well that really works in the long run.
It just doesn't. It's not. I mean, it works. It works in the moment, but it's not a sustainable thing. It's not an enjoyable thing. It's certainly not the way to live your life.
Mm-hmm.
I Gosh, that was the biggest reason why people came to my gym is, oh, my son's getting married, or I have my class reunion and I have to look a certain way. And you can look however you want to look eventually. You have to decide. What I had to do is I had to decide that maybe I want a glass of wine and a special meal. Maybe I want to have a piece of my grandson's birthday cake. I mean, if I want to do those things that bring me joy, it might slow down my progress. But first off, if you lose weight that quickly, most of it's water weight. You're not losing fat. The fat's still there. You're
Mm.
compromising some muscle because you're probably not giving yourself the nutrients that you need. You're compromising your brain function because, you know, I don't know. There's just nothing sustainable and good about rapid weight loss. And I would recommend anyone who worked with me, they're going to know right up front. So I might as well say it here. Um, Taking out entire food groups is like the most ridiculous thing in the world, unless the food group is ultra processed, really bad for you food, then that's fine. But I believe that every human body needs protein, fat, and carbohydrates. I think that we need complex carbohydrates, and those are the things that I do in my life. I don't count. I don't keep track of macros. I used to. Once upon a time I did, but I'm 58 years old and I just don't want to think that hard. And I work very hard to make sure that I have a protein, a fat, and a carbohydrate in every meal that I eat. I don't always get 5 vegetables a day, but I really try to keep it. I try to make sure that I have at least 30 servings a week of fruits and vegetables. That's make it simple, but make it enjoyable.
Yeah.
Right. And if you know that your kid's getting married 2 years from now or a year from now, and it's really important to you to look a certain way, then gosh darn it, start today and do it in a way that
Yeah.
makes you feel good about yourself and your progress and in a way that you can do for the rest of your life.
Yeah. Yeah. And you keep working around stuff until you find the one that works for you.
Yep. Yep.
Not every one of them is going to work, guys and gals.
No.
Not everyone is going to function, because going back to the same old thing, we're all different people and we all respond differently.
Yep.
My body responded real well to, and I'll say it, my body responded really well to the Whole30, and also it responded really well to intermittent fasting. It does.
Mhm.
It's great. Maybe that doesn't work for everybody, and that's okay too. But I
Yep.
love the part that you said, the idea of dropping one complete food group because it's quote quote, I'm air quoting, it's bad for you. Uh, Maybe
Yeah.
it's bad for you, but it's not bad for me. You know?
Right.
So
And maybe it's not bad for your kids either.
that's it.
That's some of these diets, somebody, well, I can't have this in my house because I'm going to eat it and I'm on this plan. Well, guess what? Your kid needs it. Your kid needs it to grow and to build muscle and to develop their brains. You can't just take out whole food groups. So
No. Yeah.
you don't need the little Debbies. You don't need ice cream every day.
But
No, you don't need
yeah,
soda or energy
yeah,
drinks. But you do need all the things that either grow from a tree or the ground or have a face. You do need those things. So,
okay. That's good. So if
yeah,
somebody's been listening to this program, Kim, how did they go about getting in touch with you? And do you do like I'm going to say like conferences or anything like that with people, or one-on-one or both? How do you work with folks?
I do. Well, first off, you can find me. I'm Kim Mosiman everywhere. So kimmosman.com. I have a new fun Facebook group that starting to help women. Sorry, guys. I'm talking to a guy,
No, no.
but to help women really get through the holidays. I'm my book's called Reflections of Joy. I'm trying to help people focus on the joy, and sometimes the holidays are the most hectic time of the year. And so we just have a private Facebook group where they can drop in, grab a recipe. If they can't find something the kids have on their wish list, they can find it there. Um, yeah, and I've got some really fun freebies on my website. Cook once, eat twice, where I cook a larger piece of protein or something
Mm-hmm.
and repurpose it because my guys didn't really like leftovers. So yeah, there's a lot of great things.
I love it.
Yep.
Repurpose it because
Yes.
that's ideal. I'll go out and I'll get a piece of fish, for an example,
Mhm.
and the local grocery store has something that I never even heard of 8 months ago. It's called swai,
Yep.
SWAI. Oh, you do know it.
Yep.
Wow. I think you're the only person that I've talked with that knows what this is besides my wife, because we found it together. But they sell it to you in these they're frozen, they're flash frozen and they're fresh and they're wild, wild caught. It's good stuff,
Mhm.
but they're good sized fillets. And what I
Yep.
do is I cut off 1/3 of that. And I cook the whole thing that one night, but I cut 1/3 of it off. And guess what happens to that third? It's for breakfast. You ever had
Oh,
fish for breakfast? It's phenomenal. It's great. Have some
yep.
scrambled eggs and swai and a piece of
Yep.
toast. There's
Absolutely.
there's your groups and a piece of fruit.
Yep. Yep. Absolutely.
And when you talk about food groups like this, they really are easy. They really are
Mhm.
so easy. Say it one more time. That all we want is what? We want a protein, a
A
carb.
fat and yep. Protein, fat, and carb.
Yeah,
Yep.
nothing wrong
Yep.
with that.
Yep.
Just
And
have it
get your
daily.
carbs from do vegetables, do fruit, do grains. It's
Mm-hmm.
okay. It's
Yeah.
okay. But cook it yourself. You'll
Yes.
save money. You'll save money and it's so much better for you.
And you know what's in it.
Yes. 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 Less than 5 ingredients is what we try to follow around here.
Oh,
So
yeah.
yeah.
I tell people that all the time. If you turn the box over or you turn the bottle over, and if you have a listing that's a full paragraph, most of
Yeah.
which is words you can't pronounce, put it back on the shelf. Put it
Yep.
back on the shelf. You don't want
That's
it in your body.
that's
You know,
exactly right.
yeah. So, what does Kim do to create a better life for herself?
I start my days are always great when I start the same way. I follow a routine every single day. I get up, I have a glass of water, I brew myself a cup of coffee, and I sit down and I write and I get everything out of my head. All of the bad things, all of the good things, the dreams, the super ideas. And then I spend quiet time in prayer and I go for a walk. And if my days can start like that, there's not a lot that can bring me down.
That's great. That's some awesome advice. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Kim, this has been such a delight. And everybody, there's going to be some notes in the show notes, links and so forth to get in touch with Kim. And I certainly invite you to go to her website and just enjoy and reach out to her if you're looking for ways to change your life to the better. So there you go. Kim,
Thank
thanks
you.
ever so much for being my guest on Toward a Better Life. Enjoy your day.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you, Kim, for sharing some wonderful guidance toward living abundantly. You can find more information about Kim Mosiman and her work through kimmosmanwellness.com. There's a link to her website in the show notes, and that's kimmosmanwellness.com. If you're seeking insights and advice on how to create a better life for yourself, please visit my website, towardabetterlife.com. It's continuing to grow with new blog entries, some classes, ways to enhance your spiritual journey, and a few products to assist you on that journey, including the opportunity as well to buy my book, Two Feathers Spiritual Seed Planter. I also offer Toward a Better Life virtual and in-person sessions. Send your inquiries to me, Kevin at towardabetterlife.com for details. Most of us are familiar with the term dystopia and dystopian from novels and movies. Join me next time on Toward a Better Life as we learn about Throughtopia, along with encouraging insights from the heart and spirit of Manda Scott. Manda is a former Scottish veterinary surgeon who is now an award-winning novelist, blogger, podcaster, columnist, and occasional broadcaster. That's going to be next time. Join me, if you would, as I chat with Manda Scott. If you enjoyed the episode or learned something today, please consider following and subscribing to Toward a Better Life through your favorite podcast platform for like Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or Amazon, or whichever you choose. And be sure to leave a review on Apple Podcasts, by the way. This helps the podcast more than I can say, and it allows us to reach more and more people, which would mean the world to me. If you have any questions, or if you'd like to share a story, music, prose, by the way, if it's an audio item, please send it to me on an MP3 file. Or if you want to be my guest, please write to me, kevin@towardabetterlife.com. That's kevin@towardabetterlife.com. Until next time, enjoy your journey toward a better life.